Welcome back to another reading and correcting with me, Kindar, the Tiger Writes, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. These are where I read a chapter from one of my stories and correct it as I go. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch. And if you are looking to support me, that is on my Patreon. Today, we are doing chapter 63 of Breaking Step. Tibs, Dawn said, 3 square diagonally on your right. I think he's got you, Still said. Tibbs looked at everyone's position, but he didn't see how it was. He certainly didn't have a line on the Lord. Genny's sorcerer moved, ending before the Lord, only there was no one on that line either. Kumdar, forward by 2. Feel free to blast the sorcerer out of the way so you can threaten the dungeon's lord. The cleric spun his staff as he moved. Darkness trailing the tips as the sorcerer etched a crystal barrier between them. Go ahead, cleric, Genny taunted. See what I've learned of what you're capable. Kumdar turned, letting the staff slip until he held it at the 3/4 point instead of the center. And as the tip of the long side scraped. Is there supposed to be 2 or 1? You are not going to. Scraped over the floor, something happened that had Tibbs staring. With each spin and scraping, the burst of darkness that flew at the sorcerer contained clumps of earth essence. The crystal sheet deflected the darkness, but the earth stuck within the etching, deforming it, pulling it down until it shattered in a series of bursts tore the sorcerer apart. You are now in danger of losing your lord, Dawn announced. How did he get earth mixed in? Ganny demanded. Even the sorcerers can't do stuff like that yet. That's new, Jekyll stated, while Tibbs tried to figure out what had happened. He'd been so surprised he hadn't thought to sense details, but he was confident that if there had been an etching or filigree, he'd have sensed them. How can you do that? He finally asked. I'm with Ganny. I thought only sorcerers could pull essence out of stuff. And they can't do that yet, she repeated. Dawn had the smile of when he knew something no one else did. I shall start by establishing that it is the guild who claims only sorcerer can do so, the cleric said. In their defense, Dawn interrupted, I've yet to come across a book contradicting them, and the mindset requires, then, Kumdar continued, sounding slightly annoyed, I shall continue by pointing out I am a cleric of darkness. As such, I have access to a wealth of secrets that even the guild wish it knew. And I shall end with, You are so full of it, Jekyll said, grinning. Do you think I haven't noticed you hanging around the fighters' field or speaking with some of us there? He looked at Dawn. How did you know he'd pull that off? I fail to understand your surprise, the cleric said, smiling back. I was, after all, simply following your example. Tibbs stared at the fighter. You've been asking questions? What can I say, Tibbs? Jekyll replied. You're a bad influence on me. Wait, so that's where you keep wait, so that's where you keep vanishing to? Mez asked, going around prying secrets out of other runners? The cleric smirked. I am not required to answer you. Does that mean anyone can use essence from more than one element? Too many people are speaking. The archer asked. No, Dawn said. As I was going to say, the mindset to allow that is difficult to reach even for us, and we start with a more open way of thinking about the world than anyone else. But we need to take that up later, since I'd like to know if the dungeon has a way out of my trap or it wants to abdicate. Tibbs looked at Ganny as a lord. It hadn't moved, neither had our remaining archer and infantry. Tibbs didn't understand the problem until he looked beyond her pieces and where Don had positioned his team. If the infantry moved to position itself between the Lord and Comdar, it opened the Lord to Jackal, who, for this game, was the lady. If the archer moved in any way, Tibbs would be able to take on the Lord since he was a sorcerer this time. He didn't know enough to claim there was nothing Kenny could do to change the situation, but it didn't look good for her. The huff she let out agreed with him. Then the Lord crumbled. I so hate you right now. And that's another win for us, Don stated, a broad smile on his face. You always say you like a good challenge, Stowe said. He's not a challenge, she replied. He and Quigley keep defeating me. They aren't any fun. Quigley's good at this? Tibbs asked, heading to the chest. He'd expected the warrior to let his sorcerer make the decisions in this room. He did go to war with a king, Jekyll replied, while Ganny grumbled something incomprehensible, but that hadn't sounded like a compliment. You know, that hadn't sounded like a compliment. Which he lost, Don said. Yeah, but you don't piss off one of them to the point they'll throw you in a catacomb instead of executing you for everyone to see just by losing. Oh, wait a minute. You don't piss off one of them to the point they'll throw you into in a catacomb instead of executing you for everyone to see just by losing. He had to make that king fight for it hard, and that takes a lot of strategy. You and him should have a game, Miss suggested to Don, while Tibbs inspected the chest for triggers. I don't think it's a good idea, the sorcerer replied. I didn't make the best of impression on him. Like that matters, Jekyll said dismissively. You made the worst impression on us, and look where you are. I'm sure that beating you will make him feel better. Don snorted. Like that's ever gonna happen? He paused. You aren't suggesting I let him win, are you? I'm not suggesting anything, Jekyll said with a chuckle, stepping next to Tib as he opened the chest. Are we going down another one of Don's memory here, too? I'm hoping for something better than that, he trailed off. Tibbs pulled the sword out. Maybe, considering how many people have wanted to plant one of these in him, maybe we are. Yeah. Okay, maybe we are. Considering how many people have wanted to plant one of these into him. Jekyll leaned over Tibbs and looked in. I doubt that would come with armor, if that was the case. No one's owned some not at home something that good until recently. Oh, unless the dungeon thinks Don needs protection in case we're going to use the sword on to stab him. Like you'd wait for me to give you the tools if you felt like stabbing him, Stowe commented. Tibbs took the metal chest plate out. He needs something, otherwise he's punching, not stabbing Don. Before the conversation progressed any further, Don said, can you confirm this is theoretical? I thought a training was giving you enough of an outlet for causing me pain. Tibbs grinned. Jekyll can turn any time into a training session. I want you to channel a lightning, Don instructed. Tibbs froze. What? He looked back. He looked back where they'd come from in case they'd miss one of the creatures, but there was no trace of the fight against the gnoll and people golem there. You heard me. Don, there's nowhere for you to hide. Lightning travels far. This isn't the right place. The sorcerer smiled. It is the perfect place. You can't destroy anything. You didn't tell him what you did to the rattling camp, did you? Stowe asked. Or when Jackal pushed you to the point where you melted your ice? You know what I did before, Tibbs said, swallowing the pain of nearly killing Jackal. But the dungeon can remake everything here, unlike, say, a warehouse. That takes a lot more work. Like, you have any idea how much work it takes me to fix the damage? Stowe grumbled, and it hurts. It hurts, Stowe. Tibbs stated. Then don't hurt him. Also, don't hurt us. Kamdar and Maz had taken a step back at Don's announcement. Jekyll hadn't moved. He hadn't even stoned up. I trust Don, the fighter said. Hey, he added at the stairs. It's not the first time I've said it. I let him order us about in the conquest room, don't I? Because he's the best chance you'll win and get the loot. Maz reply. This is about training Tibbs, and we know how that goes better than he does. Jekyll shrugged. Tibbs is not going to hurt us. Hurt you, Kamdar said. We have yet to truly put to the test how much Tibbs can resist the element when it comes to our safety. That's what you can't seem to grasp, Don said. Tibbs never resisted the element. What he does is reach an understanding of what they are and that he isn't them. It's been confrontational because Tibbs didn't have a way to keep from being overwhelmed. And that oneness thing is how he's going to keep it from happening? Mez asked, dubious. Kamdar, care to step in and help? Don asked. How would I? The sorcerer glared. The cleric sighed. Very well. Oneness is a way of living based around the idea that the element flow through people and that they affect their emotions. Within certain circle of the belief, they claim the element are our emotions, but that is a minority. But the elements are not our emotion. They are beings, they think, they feel, they have their own desires, and that is why I do not believe this will help Tibbs gain control. Why haven't you ever suggested we try something like that? Mez asked. Have I not just said I do not believe this will help? Also, while I am aware of the existence of the philosophy and its underpinning from discussions with believers, that does not mean I have learned how it is taught. He narrowed his eyes at Dawn, and I will ask how it is you believe I would be aware of its existence. That I know, you mean, the sorcerer replied with a smirk. You mentioned seeing the ostratium during your travels. I have, the clerk replied cautiously, but also sounding like he didn't see how it meant anything. The ostratium is located in Arcadian. I believe you are correct. His tone didn't lose its caution. Arcadian adopted oneness as the dominant philosophy a little over 3 centuries ago. Became rather militant about it 116 years back. 116 years back, it would be impossible for you to have traveled through that kingdom and not learn about it. I'm surprised you managed not to get dragged into being taught. If you really don't know anything about how to learn it. You know anything about how? Yeah, I'm going to leave it like that. How would you know of the kingdom's belief? The cleric asked in one of the rare moments of being dumbfounded Tibbs could add witness. I read about it, Don replied. You read about it. It was from a scholar who was researching it, if it was possible to teach someone the sorcerer's way of thinking. She wasn't impressed with it, but I found more of her work when looking for how to help Tibbs. He isn't lying, Tibbs said at the questioning look Kamdar gave him. There had been no light on any of the word, just Don's usual sense of superiority when he spoke of things he knew so much about. Then I would like to know why you felt the need to read about something I mentioned in passing, Kamdar said, tone darkening. The sorcerer looked at him in surprise. I read that years ago. Back when I was going to be a scholar. Back then I was always in the library reading anything that let me take off the shelves. He sighed, when my family could afford the entry fee. Am I to believe that? How about you two talk about this later? Jekyll said, we have a run to finish, and while I'm willing to spend that precious time with Tibbs training, this discussion isn't helping that happen. Your unhappiness at Don borrowing your thing and unearthing some of your secret is for later. Don snorted. I have better things to do with my time. Jekyll, Tibbs said, it's not safe to do that here. Like anything is, the fighter replied, but Don's right. Here is safer than anywhere in Craggle Rock. But I can hurt you, Tibbs insisted. think of it as an incentive to be careful then. Tibbs looked at the others. Even with the distance they'd put, he'd expected protest out of Mez at least. I'll be fine, Tibbs, Don reassured him. He doubted it, but that was his fear talking. He took a slow breath. It had some basis from his past experience. He couldn't deny that. Another one. But his fears were usually disproportionate to what ended up happening. He let go of water, and it took him many breaths to be able to channel lightning. There was so much to do. The shifting wall room, the boss room, finding how to get through it. He had to bring Marger to the town so he could kill him and have that bring the guild down around his body. All the runners needed his help so they wouldn't die the way the guild wanted them. He breathed. He breathed. He was being impatient. There was too much. There was too much to do to waste time. He couldn't stay here still. He needed to move, make it all happen. Talk to Daran, give him the promises to get the armor, the weapon, the trainer, good trainers who'd... He breathed. There was time. No, there wasn't. He was... Tibs. He breathed. Lightning was who needed everything to happen at once. Tibs knew things took time. He breathed. He opened his eyes. Don had been right. He was going to be so fucking unbearable about it. He had to tell him, no, keep it secret. Explode so Don would think he hadn't worked. Thank him for giving him a way to control it, to help to... He breathed. He didn't have to do any of those things right now. He breathed and felt the desire flit through him. The need to be and do. He focused on one. He wanted to find out if Clara was here. Now that the clerics were back, would she find a good team? Maybe Quigley would take her on his when he lost one of his archers. Maybe she wasn't back, still punished for helping his town against Sebastian, against her order. So we're forgoing against her orders and helping his town against Sebastian. He let the thought go. Yeah, Don was never going to let him forget this oneness thing. Oneness thing was his idea. He turned to face his friend and smiled as they had all, even Jackal, stepped back, then frowned at the spiderweb of black lines emanating from where Tibs stood. As he watched, lightning coursed from the wall to his body. Sorry about that. He absorbed the essence. Are you okay? Jekyll asked. A bolt escaped his attention as his mind reeled with answers to the question. Was he okay? Of course he was. No, he wasn't. He still missed Mama and Karina, and he breathed. All those things were for later, when he made time for them. Now he was keeping lightning from hurting his friends, keeping his thoughts from flying all over the place and sending bolts chasing after them. This isn't as easy as you said, Don. But it's easier than not understanding what's happening. Maybe it's because lightning is everything and everywhere at... No, that's not right. It isn't that. It wants to be that, and I'm doing it again, letting it carry me away, but I see it happening. When fire consumed me, I could only see him, not what I should do. Even that there was, or that there was even a me in there. It's the same with learning the other elements. I want to be there and here and there, over there, right now. But I also know it's not me who wants that. It's lightning. It's really weird and it's distracting. I don't know how much help I'll be while channeling him. I mean, this helps, but it takes a lot of my attention on thinking, and I'm thinking about a lot of things right now. It's okay, Don said. This isn't about doing the run while channeling lightning. You can let go of it now. But this is good. I can think about so many things. I could work on other triggers while solving the puzzle if I spent more time like this, learning to... No, I wouldn't. This is lightning, not me. But I can tell. That means it's time to let go. He did and felt like he was wrapped in water filled with gur. Everything was so slow. What was he thinking? There was so much. Why? What was he Okay. What had he been thinking? What had he been thinking? There was so much he could do if only it wasn't true. While he thought faster, it had been a jumble of them. Not one of them had turned into something he did. You were right, he told Dawn. This oneness thing is going to make it easier. I'm glad. The sorcerer's smile broadened. How about we continue to run? Tibbs narrowed his eyes. You want to brag, don't you? You have no idea how badly I want to brag, Don admitted, grinning. Why don't you? Because it wouldn't be right to brag about being right? You have met Jackal, right? Tibbs asked, the suspiciousness thick in his voice. I was right! Don burst out into the little dance. You doubted me and I was right! He's going to be so unbearable now, Jackal said. Tibbs shrugged. No more than you when you think you're right. Hey, I don't think I'm right, the fighter straightened. I know I'm right. And that concludes chapter 63 of Breaking Step. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next chapter is going to be up, subscribe, hit the bell. If you want to read the story, as well as the other two books, it is up on Royal Road for free. If you want to read ahead of Royal Road and support me at the same time, that is on my Patreon, where we're about 20 chapters ahead. And if you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch. The links are in the notes. And with that, I shall wish you a good day.